Exposed. Heartwarming moment when Billionaire discovers Maid's incredible sacrifice for her baby. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the imposing mansion of Mr. Reynolds. Inside, Lauren scurried through the gleaming halls, her heart racing. Each swipe of her cleaning cloth was laced with worry for her daughter, Mia. Just 4 years old, Mia was sick, her little body fighting battles that drained Lauren's bank account and her spirit. She was just a maid in a world dripping with wealth, but every swipe brought her a little closer to paying for the next costly treatment. Tonight, as she stuffed herself into the pantry to cancel the hospital procedure, fear clawed at her heart. Outside the opulent mansion, Mr. Reynolds strolled through his garden, oblivious to the struggle of the woman he employed. He was the picture of success, living the American dream. His laughter echoed through the air, a sound of comfort and ease. But behind that laughter lay a world he rarely recognized, a world of sacrifice and silent screams. When he stumbled across Lauren, ink smeared on her cheeks wet with unshed tears, the air shifted. She was desperately canceling a treatment, a lifeline for Mia. "Lauren, everything okay?" he asked, trying to navigate the unfamiliar territory of concern. Her heart raced. Would he see her struggle? A deep breath steeled her resolve. "Yeah, just fine," she stammered, hoping her facade wouldn't betray her. As the days passed, Mr. Reynolds saw more of Lauren, the commitment in her eyes, her exhaustion, the tiny moments of joy when she spoke of Mia. With each interaction, doubt began to nudge at his understanding of the world around him. Yet, he felt the walls of privilege close in, a familiar unease creeping back each time he considered stepping beyond his social class. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came the economic downturn, a storm that rattled the foundations of Oakwood Heights. Panic gripped the elite, and Mr. Reynolds found himself wondering about the worth of material things. As community ties frayed, he started to glimpse Lauren's reality, though his mind fought the shift. Watching her scramble between jobs and her tired sneakers, he felt his heart squeeze tighter. Days turned into weeks, with emotional distance becoming the invisible barrier between them. The revelation was stirring. How many lives intersected in the frail strands of sacrifice? One evening, after a particularly gut-wrenching day, they crossed paths again. Lauren's tired smile met his gaze, and for a flickering moment, they were connected by an unspoken understanding. Just as he began to extend a hand, a longtime friend approached, the stench of old biases wafting in. Words twisted like sharp glass, igniting doubt. Here was the moment of choice. Would he stand tall for her, or would the fears shouted by his peers pull him back? As they stood on the precipice of change, the weight of a decision hung in the air. Would he turn his back on everything he once believed? Lauren's struggles echoed in his mind like a desperate plea. And as the sun set on that fateful day, a question lingered. What truly mattered when lives depended on something more than just wealth? Mr. Reynolds blinked, caught between the familiar and the unknown. His friend's laughter rang out like nails on a chalkboard. "You're not actually considering?" the friend scoffed, eyeing Lauren with a mix of scorn and disbelief. Mr. Reynolds' heart thumped louder in his chest. Could he really dismiss the very essence of their shared humanity just to maintain the life he had always known? For a moment, time stood still. The immense garden, once a source of pride for Mr. Reynolds, felt suffocating now. The vibrant flowers seemed to mock him, their beauty overshadowing a harsh truth. He glanced back at Lauren. Her shoulders were hunched, her gaze lowered, as if expecting judgment upon her mere existence. "I'm sorry," he heard himself say, surprising even his own ears. Confusion flickered across his friend's face. "What? You can't be serious." "She asked, just the help." "Just the help?" Mr. Reynolds repeated, feeling the heat of frustration rise within him. Lauren was so much more than that. "You don't even know her story." As his friend started to protest, Mr. Reynolds stepped forward. "You know what? I think I do know her story, and it matters." A silence filled the space. The friend snapped his mouth shut, momentarily taken aback. The other guests milling about the garden turned to watch. They could feel the shift, the tension palpable, a small revolution igniting within their midst. Lauren's eyes met Mr. Reynolds in a charged moment. Fear and gratitude swirled in her gaze. He could see the unvoiced hope reflected there, and it flooded through him, a tide of emotion pushing back against the restraints of his upbringing. Lauren, he turned back toward her, his voice steady but low. If you need help, real help, I'm here for you. She opened her mouth, words trembling on the edge of her lips, but no sound came. The air crackled with unspoken understanding, a connection stitched tighter, thread by invisible thread, that a collective gasp rippled through the guests surrounding them. They all knew this was a crossing of lines, a moment that shattered the delicate facade of social class. Tension hung thick, but it was also laced with a strange kind of possibility. See, this is absurd, the friend cried, anger bubbling over. You can't just watch me, Mr. Reynolds shot back. The words tasted foreign, yet liberating, like shedding an old-skinned as whispers began to swirl among the crowd. He turned to Lauren again. I want to do something for Mia. Whatever it takes. Weeks of isolated struggles flashed through her eyes, a lone mother battling odds stacked high. She finally nodded, tears brimming. But what if you regret this? I won tea. The certainty rolled off his tongue, but thoughts rushed through his mind in a chaotic dance. What would his peers say? Would he lose everything? Wealth? Influence? Status? But what was wealth, he wondered, if it meant walking away from something so profoundly human? Heart pounding, Lauren took a step closer. Mr. Reynolds, Daniel, he corrected, casting aside titles like discarded clothes. Just call me Daniel. Before he could think any further, a realization struck him with an unrelenting force. Not only was he offering support, but he was also stepping into a territory he had shunned for years. What awaited them both on the other side of this leap? What began as a quiet decision now felt like a tidal wave, a steady surge of change. With hope and uncertainty intertwined, they stood on the brink of a new chapter, and deep down, both knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, yet the promise of something better began to blossom between them. But with every possibility came new challenges. A question hung in the air. How would those around them respond to this budding alliance? Would love and resilience triumph, or would the weight of prejudice pull them apart? The garden buzzed with a mix of murmurs and gasps. Mr. Reynolds, no. Daniel could feel the weight of all those eyes on him, judging, whispering, and more than anything, wondering what he would do next. He didn't want to crumble under their scrutiny. Instead, he felt a surge of defiance, a pulse racing through him that dared him to be bold. Hey, everybody, why don't we take a second to acknowledge how brave Lauren has been? He called out, glancing around at the enchanted expressions weighing heavily on every face. She is fighting for her daughter in ways I can hardly comprehend. There was a shift. A flicker of realization brought a quietness that started washing over the crowd. But doubt never came easy to people who thrived under a rigid structure. One of the guests, a woman wearing an expensive sundress, scoffed. And you think you can save her? Just like that? Look at where she comes from. It's not that simple. Her words sliced through the air, yet they ignited a deeper fire within Daniel. It might not be simple, but it's worth it, he said firmly. If we can't help each other out of challenges, what is the point of all this? Lauren's eyes glimmered with something he might have once mistaken for fear. But now it was clarity, shining through tears. She took a deep breath, as if in that moment she drew courage from the ground beneath them, as unstable as it might be. Daniel, she whispered, you really don't have to do this. But her voice quivered, a delicate thread of hope woven tightly with concern, that he shook his head, stepping closer to her. How can I stand by when I see someone deserving of support, standing right in front of me? We can work on this together. The tension shifted again, and murmuring turned from judgment to curiosity. As the guests exchanged glances, some began to stir, stepping forward, quietly beginning to see what this meant. Fine, the woman responded bitterly, her stance unwavering. But don't expect everyone to pat you on the back for this little act of heroism. This won't end well. Her words loomed heavy, a reminder that the world outside of the garden was still ruled by prejudice and privilege. Daniel felt the weight settle on his chest. Yet instead of retreating, he leaned into it, inviting Lauren to step closer against the tide of discomfort. This isn't about me, he insisted, palms open and heart exposed. Lauren deserves a chance to carve out a different life for herself and Mia. We all do. But as he spoke, he recognized the irony. The wealthy man trying to rescue the marginalized woman. It was no fairy tale. It was raw and unpolished, a messy struggle that would tear at the edges of his carefully curated world. The joy and vulnerability intertwined in those moments felt both thrilling and sobering. A small voice piped up from the back. It was Mia, Lauren's daughter, staring wide-eyed at the commotion. "Mommy," she called, skipping forward on petite legs, the innocence of youth lighting up her face. The crowd parted instinctively, watching as the little girl approached her mother. In that instant, the air crackled with tension and possibility. Mia's wide smile illuminated the gloom, seeming to peel back layers of doubt for everyone around them. As her eyes landed on Daniel, something shifted. A flicker of understanding passed between him and the girl, a connection rooted in something far deeper than words. What will happen when the little girl realizes the sacrifice her mother has made? What drowning truths lie just beneath the surface, waiting to break free? The moment of truth was looming, and Daniel sensed it in the pit of his stomach, ready to spill forth. Would he be able to protect this nascent bond from the storm that was sure to follow? Mia's little hand reached up, and with a soft tug at her mother's skirt, she looked up, searching for assurance in Lauren's eyes. The din of curious whispers faded into oblivion, replaced by the sound of her heartbeat sinking with the unexpected calm that washed over the garden. For a brief moment, it felt as if nothing else mattered. "Mommy, can we dance?" Mia asked, her eyes sparkling with innocence and joy. Lauren knelt beside her daughter, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Mia's ear. It was a simple question, yet it hit differently amidst the tension. "Dance here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, yet filled with unmistakable warmth. "Yes, like the birds." Mia squealed, spinning in a little circle, arms wide open as if she could catch the sky and the laughter ringing from it. The pure joy that radiated from the child, even in that overwhelming environment, caught Daniel off guard. He found himself smiling, his heart swelling with a familiar ache. Innocence was wrapped up within Mia, and for a moment, he understood the weight on Lauren's shoulders a little better. "Let us show them how to dance." Mia beamed, pulling Lauren up with her, and suddenly the garden felt less like a battleground and more like a sanctuary. Adult faces around them softened. Some stepped closer, peering in as if witnessing an unexpected miracle. The woman in the sundress, who had been so cold moments prior, blinked back surprise. It seemed impossible to not get caught up in the moment. The twinkle of childlike wonder enveloped everyone, transporting them away from judgment into something deeper, something brighter. Still holding onto Lauren's hand, Mia began to sway gently, her rhythms bold and unrestrained. Lauren followed, a hesitant smile breaking through the lines of worry etched on her face. With each turn, with each shy giggle, something shifted not just between mother and daughter, but also among the spectators who had stood static in skepticism. With the little girl leading the way, Daniel took a step back, letting them share their beautiful, unencumbered moment. He felt something forming the strength of a connection that was more about partnership than savior and saved. "Mia, everyone loves to dance," Lauren said softly, trying to ground the moment in reality. "But sometimes it takes courage, and sometimes we dance even when we're afraid." Daniel's breath hitched. There it was, validation of everything he wanted to showcase in that garden. Community, support, the sharing of burdens and joys. It was as if Lauren's words acted like a response to everyone's doubts. "Let us help each other," he called to the gathering crowd, lifting his voice slightly to break through their distractions. "We can be the reason she shines brighter, and her life fills with dance instead of despair. Who's with me?" A slow ripple of movement began as more guests stepped forward, spurred on by the infectious warmth of Mia's innocent joy. The energy shifted, something electric passing through the garden that even the cruelest skeptic could not deny. As the music rose, a light tune that caught the air like a forgotten dream. Couples began to sway, hands outstretched, connected to the rhythm of something greater. Daniel caught Lauren's eye and saw a spark of hope flicker there that hadn't been present before, mingling with the fears of reality. But just as the mood began to lift, a shadow fell across the garden. The sharp voice of the wealthy woman broke through the laughter. "You all think this will change anything? You're all fools. Look around, this is a facade. The music faltered, and all eyes turned toward her again, tension coiling tighter in the air. Would the cloud of her cynicism darken this fragile moment of unity? Daniel felt the pulse of doubt surge as he gripped Lauren's hand, fearing what came next. Beneath all that dancing joy, the looming storm was back, threatening to drown them. Would they find a way to dance through it together, or was the uplift just a fleeting dream, trapped in the reality of their lives? The wealthy woman's harsh words hung in the air like an unwelcome chill. Faces that had bloomed with laughter now tightened at her cutting tone. The music dipped a little lower, the notes suddenly feeling fragile, almost lost among the silence that followed. Daniel stood taller, clutching Lauren's hand as if it was the only anchor amidst the shifting tides of uncertainty. "Mia," honey, Lauren's voice faltered, concern clouding her bright eyes. The sparkle that had danced there just moments ago dimmed under the weight of reality. But Mia, undeterred by the shadows of doubt creeping in, continued to spin. The world, in her eyes, was still a beautiful place. "Mommy, look!" she shouted gleefully, arms outstretched, spinning faster, her laughter bright and pure, weaving through the tension like a thread of light. And there it was, the heart of the moment. The simple, beautiful act of a child demanding joy, refusing to bow to cynicism. Daniel felt a rush of something, determination, perhaps. He stepped forward, raising his own voice above the gathering storm. "Maybe she's right. Maybe nothing will change overnight," he said, and for a heartbeat, he saw the disbelief flicker in the eyes of those around him. "But that doesn't mean we can't change something, here and now?" His words began to stir the air again. People shifted, whispering among themselves. The urge to retreat was palpable, but Daniel saw something else, a flicker of understanding. "Look around," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "This isn't about fixing everything. It's about moments of kindness, laughter, and love. It's about believing in things greater than ourselves." He dared to let his gaze dart across the crowd, landing on Lauren, who was now watching him with a mix of hope and uncertainty. He could see the questioning in her eyes, but beneath that doubt, there was a spark, a connection, and Mia, still spinning, laughter echoing like music, had brought people closer together, thawing the frost of skepticism with her unyielding spirit. Daniel felt the warmth begin to swell again. "Let us dance," he called, lifting his arms like a conductor ready to lead a symphony of hearts. "Join us. Let us let go of these doubts, if only for a moment." Slowly, hesitantly, people began to sway again, some whispering uncertainly among themselves. Others stepped into the makeshift circle that Mia had created, inching closer as if swept along by an invisible tide. When Lauren finally began to sway again with Mia, her movements came alive. The burden of reality lifted just enough for her spirit to peek through, illuminating her features as she joined her daughter. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the garden, igniting a spark in others. Daniel felt the energy surge fueled by Mia's giggles and Lauren's newfound courage. The garden was transforming again, but he knew they were still dancing on the edge. The wealthy woman's voice echoed ominously in his mind. As the music rose anew, Daniel caught Lauren's eye. "We can build this place together," he said with quiet intensity. "We have to believe it can matter." But just as the music swelled and the laughter rose, the crowd parted briefly. A man stepped forward, his phone in hand, face pale and eyes filled with an unsettling urgency. "You need to see this," he said, looking straight at Lauren. Her heart dropped. What could it be? The rhythm of the garden faltered again, anxiety rising amidst the clamor of dancing feet and laughter. Would this news bring the darkness back? As Daniel's eyes flicked between them, a churning dread gripped his chest. What revelation awaited, and would it shatter their fragile moment? The chatter around them faded, the vibrant colors of the garden dimmed as the man held out his phone, the screen bright under the gathering dusk. Lauren's hand trembled slightly as she reached for it, her heart racing. What could possibly be so urgent? Daniel stepped closer, peering over Lauren's shoulder, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was so compelling. A video began to play, pixelated images flickering before them. The laughter, the music, the wonderful facade, they all seemed to crack under the weight of the unknown. "She's been living in her car," the voice on the video explained, a male reporter's tone both urgent and somber. Daniel strained to hear. It was a news segment, one that felt all too familiar. A local housekeeper found struggling to care for her newborn while keeping her job. The camera cut to a woman, weary but defiant, cradling a tiny baby wrapped in a thin blanket. Her eyes were filled with determination, echoing Mia's innocence, yet dulled by an unmistakable heaviness, one that bore the burdens of 1,000 women like her. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He glanced at Lauren, who was glued to the screen, tears welling in her eyes. It was as if the weight of the world had just nudged its way into their little slice of joy. The wealthy woman's words returned to haunt him. Did they really have the power to change anything? Mia? Lauren called, finding her daughter amidst the crowd, still caught up in her world of spinning joy. Come here, sweetie. Mia zipped over, her bright laughter casting a fleeting warmth amid the sudden chill that enveloped them. She looked up at her mother, her cheeks flushed with excitement. But then her eyes widened at the sight of the phone. What's wrong, Mommy? The innocence of Mia's question made Daniel's heart ache. He wanted her to stay blissfully unaware of the darker aspects of life. Yet here they were, confronted by reality. Life was not always a dance, was it? Nothing, just a story, Lauren managed, brushing her tears away and forcing a smile. Yet it was weak, like a candle flickering against the wind. The man with the phone, clearly mesmerized by the gravity of what he was witnessing, stepped back, creating space for a small group that had gathered around them. The crowd was murmuring again, this time tinged with empathy and concern. Daniel squeezed Lauren's hand. We're not like her, but we can help. We can do something, right? His voice was soft, but the conviction burned within him. Perhaps this moment, however unsettling, could be a catalyst. Another wave of realization washed over Lauren as she took a step closer to Daniel. You're right. If we don't do it now, when? But just as their resolve began to shape like a solid form, the pounding bass of the music resumed, almost as if mocking their moment of clarity. The juxtaposition of joy and sorrow resonated deep within, and what began as a whimsical gathering now became a whirlpool of emotions. Let us start with what we know, Daniel said, raising his voice again, this time with fierce determination. Let us gather resources. Let us help each other. But before they could act on that spark of hope, the wealthy woman's cold laughter pierced through the crowd. You really think that LL make a difference? You can't save everybody. Her voice cut through Daniel's momentum, pulling him into a battle of wills. Suddenly, it was not just about one woman or one family. This was becoming something bigger. That he turned, facing the wealthy woman. What if we just saved one? What if we begin by changing one life today? The crowd shifted, some nodding in quiet agreement, others caught in their battle between despair and determination. Mia spun behind them, laughter mixing with the tension. Daniel could feel something shift in the atmosphere, a collective breath taken in anticipation. But would it be enough? What were they about to create together? The night was just beginning, but the stakes had been raised. The definition of their dance had changed entirely. What awaited them in the next moment of truth? The music thumped steadily, but in that moment, it felt distant, like the background to a scene unfolding in another world. Daniel turned back to the crowd, now buzzing with restlessness. The tension lingered like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating, each face reflecting a mix of solidarity and skepticism. Lauren's voice was a whisper, trembling as she knelt down to her daughter's eye level. It's about helping people, just like we help at the shelter, remember? Some people need a little extra love to get by. Mia's eyes searched her mother's face. But why are they sad, Mommy? She asked, her innocence cutting deeper than any debate. Daniel stepped forward, determined. Because sometimes, life isn't fair. But we can change that, even just a little. He looked at Mia, hoping his words would anchor her to that unshakable truth that kindness mattered. Can we help that lady and her baby? Mia asked, genuine concern etched across her young features. Yes, sweetie. We can, Lauren said, her voice firmer now. We'll find a way. Just then, the wealthy woman interjected with a snicker. You really think you can just waltz in and make everything better? You'll only get hurt in the end. It was a challenge, and it hung in the air, daring them. But perhaps the battle had already begun. As Daniel looked around, he noticed a few people stepping forward, redefining the narrative around them. A woman in a flowy dress raised her hand, enthusiasm flooding her voice. I work with a local charity. We can connect with her, find her resources. Another man, with rugged hands and worn clothes, joined in. I've got a truck. We could gather clothes, food, whatever she needs. Let us do this. The murmurs of support grew louder, and a wave of energy pulsed through the crowd. Daniel felt it swell, charging the atmosphere with hope. See, he said, turning back to the wealthy woman. People want to help. They want to be a part of something real. Mia bounced on her toes, eyes shining like twin stars. I want to help too. Can I bring my toys? Yes, sweetheart. Every little bit helps. Lauren's smile bloomed, infused with newfound strength. The music seemed to fade further as they huddled together. People were moving, planning, and organizing. For so long, Daniel had felt powerless, as if he were tethered by the weight of his comfort. But here, in this garden filled with laughter that now intertwined with intention, he could feel a shift. He started to gather the crowd, breaking them into groups for outreach. Let us find her. We'll spread the word, gather funds, anything that can change her life. We'll reach out to the shelters and get her a place. As they worked, Daniel caught sight of the wealthy woman's expression. Her eyes narrowed, like thin slicing daggers, unable to fully grasp the movement blooming before her. Good luck with that, she sneered, yet there was a flicker of uncertainty in her smug demeanor. Thank you, Daniel said, the words dripping with sarcasm. He locked eyes with her, a silent promise of perseverance ignited between them. Suddenly, Mia brought back her bag, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched tightly to her chest. Do you think she'd like Benny? He asked the best. The innocence in her offering struck a chord within Daniel. Lauren knelt beside Mia, pride swelling in her chest. Absolutely. Benny will bring her smiles. As they rallied around Mia, it became clear this wasn't merely about charity anymore. It was about hope revived. Faces lit up, and hearts opened up. They were creating connections amidst the noise of the party. But just as things shifted toward a hopeful tide, a shout broke through the din. You can't just save one. That is not enough. The dissent was like scattered ashes in the wind, restless and defiant. Then we save more, Daniel replied, fully aware this was just the beginning. As they braced for the evolution of their intentions, he couldn't help but wonder, would their act of kindness spark a fire larger than themselves? What awaited them in the days to come? The question lingered, heavy with promise yet edged with uncertainty. The commotion in the garden was palpable, each person energized by the budding sense of purpose. But Daniel felt the weight of that dissental voice echoing loudly in his mind. What did it mean to save one when so many needed help? The thought gnawed at him like a splinter embedded in his conscience. Let us focus on helping this family first, he urged, taking a deep breath. We can figure out a plan, one step at a time. He watched as an older man with graying hair approached, his brow furrowed with concern. I've seen too many trying to fix everything at once, the man said solemnly. It often falls apart. We need to be realistic. But don't mistake that for apathy. We can support this effort, just let us be smart about it. Nods rippled through the crowd in agreement. Daniel could see both the wisdom in his words and the tinge of fear beneath them. Realistic doesn't mean giving up, Lauren chimed in, catching Daniel's eye. It means finding a way to make our efforts sustainable. It's okay to care about one, while still keeping our eye on the bigger picture. Mia, unaware of the tension, looked up wide-eyed. Can we save a whole family? Like Grandma and Grandpa too? She asked earnestly. Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest at her innocence. Absolutely, Mia. This is just the beginning. We can build a team. Determined, he called out to the crowd. Let us start by reaching out to neighbors and friends who can contribute. We can set a date for a fundraiser, a big community lunch. Excitement sparked among the attendees, and soon the air filled with ideas on how to engage more people and raise awareness. Over the next hour, a beautiful domino effect began to unfold. Ideas were shared, plans were plotted, and the energy shifted from skepticism to collective action. But as moments of joy erupted, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was brewing, a challenge lurking just beneath the surface. He glanced toward the entrance of the garden, where the wealthy woman leaned against the wall, her expression unreadable. Suddenly, a young man in the crowd raised his voice, drawing attention. What about our own struggles? How do we help ourselves when we're just trying to get by? The echo of his words ushered in a collective murmur of agreement, and Daniel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Helping others doesn't mean we neglect our needs, he replied, pacing slightly to release a hint of nervous energy. It's about building each other up, showing what community truly looks like. A voice called from the back, mistrust lacing every word. And once you fix one problem, won't there be another waiting? Daniel felt the frustration rise, battling with the urge to quit. But deep down, he knew they couldn't afford to turn back now. He spotted Mia, still clutching Benny tightly, radiating that fierce belief that kindness could indeed change the world, one act at a time. We can't fix everything alone, he said, searching the faces in the crowd. But we can start here, with each other. The murmur softened, eyes glimmering with a mix of hope and uncertainty. As the crowd continued to brainstorm, Lauren stepped beside Daniel, a reassuring presence. We need to keep moving forward, she said softly, determined. Right, Daniel replied, yet he knew there was another layer waiting to be unveiled. There were flickers of doubt swirling, shadows that needed to be addressed. What about those who felt their hardships couldn't be solved as easily? Just then, a little girl with bright ribbons in her hair tugged at Daniel's pant leg. Can we really help everyone, Mr. Daniel? In that moment, the gravity of her question weighed heavily on him. He knelt down, looking into her hopeful eyes. One day at a time, he said, but inside he wondered if the world could withstand their efforts to make it better. The crowd began to disperse, but Daniel's heart raced as he felt a storm brewing on the horizon of their venture. What would it take to overcome the doubts and fears that whispered insistently in their ears? The answer loomed just out of reach, but one thing was certain. They were about to discover whether their intentions could find a way to transcend the very challenges they were aiming to combat, and perhaps it would be through a sacrifice they never expected. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden, the gathering slowly began to break apart. Daniel felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. He watched as Mia skipped around, her laughter bubbling like a brook, completely unaware of the storm of uncertainty that loomed over the adults. We can do this, he whispered to himself, feeling the weight of the unspoken doubts still hanging in the air. But deep down he was unsure. The words of the young man echoed in his mind, a harsh reminder of their reality. While one family may find a glimmer of hope, what about the dozens more on the brink? He turned to Lauren, who was jotting down notes. Do you really think we can pull this off? He asked quietly. Her brow furrowed as she considered his question. We won't know unless we try. The real challenge will be keeping everyone engaged, showing them that this matters. The flame of resolve ignited again within him. Okay, so let's do this. With renewed energy, the two got to work planning the details of the community lunch. They mapped out the layout and drew a rough plan on a scrap piece of paper, tossing around ideas for food, activities, and how to promote it. Lauren shared some recipes she had learned from her grandmother, each one rich with memories. It felt good to laugh together, but just as excitement began to swell in Daniel's chest, he caught sight of the wealthy woman from earlier. She stood off to the side, watching them, her arms crossed tightly. What was she thinking? Did she plan to contribute? Or was she simply a bystander with more power than anyone else? Do you think she'll help? Lauren asked, sensing his distraction. Maybe, he replied cautiously. But we need everyone, not just a few. Just then, as if summoned by his thoughts, the woman approached. Her heels clicked on the cobblestone path, cutting through the relaxed atmosphere. Excuse me, she began, her voice smooth but firm. I couldn't help but overhear your plans. While your intentions are noble, I wonder, she paused, eyes narrowing slightly. How do you plan to involve the very people you aim to help? Daniel's heart sank. It felt like a trap. We'll reach out, listen to their needs, and get their input. This is about them, after all. But she shook her head. And what if they distrust you? Or feel you're trying to rescue them rather than empower them? The crowd had thinned, and he caught a few lingering ears around them, their expressions mixed with intrigue and skepticism. An awkward silence grew, thick enough to slice. Trust is earned, he found himself saying, surprised at his own resolve. But you're right, if we don't include them from the start, we might fail before we begin. A small voice piped up from the back. It was Mia again, overhearing their exchange. Can we ask them what they need, Mr. Daniel? Like Grandma and Grandpa? An unexpected warmth surged through him. Exactly, Mia. We have to reach out, even to the reluctant ones. We need to show them we're in this together. The wealthy woman tilted her head, a flicker of curiosity piercing her stoic facade. Perhaps there was room for connection after all. As they parted ways, Daniel felt a growing sense of urgency. The details of the event were beginning to materialize, but the questions surrounding community trust weighed heavier than before. As the darkness settled, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. They were stepping into uncharted waters, and he couldn't help but wonder what sacrifices might they all need to make along the way. The upcoming community lunch felt like a make-or-break moment. Would it unite them, or expose deeper rifts they had yet to confront? The day of the community lunch arrived, and the garden transformed. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, tables laden with food waited in eager anticipation, and laughter bubbled like a joyful stream. Daniel looked around, feeling exhilarated yet anxious. The stakes were high, and the time for talk had passed. Mia, with her shining eyes, darted around, gathering her toys and lining them up on a table, her face a radiant mix of concentration and delight. "Look, Mommy, everyone will have something to play with, too." Her enthusiasm was infectious, drawing smiles from passers-by. Daniel and Lauren stood side by side, taking it all in. The crowd began to gather families from the affluent neighborhoods, alongside those they had aimed to support. It felt like a fragile bridge spanning the divide. But as they welcomed people in, Daniel felt the weight of apprehension settle in. Would they engage with each other? Would the distance that privilege created shrink? Would their hopes spiral into disappointment? As the event kicked off, he took to the microphone, feeling the warmth from the sun against his skin. "Thank you all for coming together today. This isn't just about food. It's about connection and community. We're here to listen." The gathering buzzed with chatter, joy, and murmurs of curiosity. Daniel saw the wealthy woman standing slightly apart, arms crossed, her piercing gaze unyielding. There was a chill in the air stirred by her skepticism, but Daniel pressed on. "Many of you might wonder how you can truly help, and today is about answering that question," he said, searching for Lauren's reassuring presence. They had practiced this moment countless times, envisioning a house full of laughter and connection, and that's when Mia took center stage. "Mommy and Mr. Daniel say we can help others," she squealed, her voice piercing through the noise. She looked up at Lauren, bubbling with excitement. "Can I tell them what we can do?" Lauren nodded, beaming. "Go ahead, sweetie." Mia stepped up. "If someone needs food, we can bring them some from our big dinner, and if they need toys, we have plenty to share." Her innocence shone through, bright and vivid, pulling the crowd's focus. Conversation slowed, faces turned toward the little girl, captivated by her joy. The wealthy woman uncrossed her arms, visibly intrigued as she rolled her shoulders back, allowing the warmth of the atmosphere to penetrate her icy demeanor. "What a sweet idea," she called out. "But it has to go beyond today. What about those who are too afraid to ask?" That question hung heavy in the air, reverberating in the hearts of the listeners. It felt as if the very ground had shifted beneath them, urging a mindful response. Daniel felt this was the crux of their endeavor, the moment they had been preparing for. "Yes, we need to create a space where everyone feels welcome to ask for help," he affirmed. "Today is just a start. We want to create a monthly gathering, maybe even a community council. We want to hear from everyone what they need, how we can support each other." Waves of murmurs rose amidst the crowd, pinpricks of light among the heavy clouds of doubt. "That's better," the wealthy woman nodded, her tone shifting, because real support builds trust. As the day unfolded, plates filled, laughter echoed, and bonds began to form. They created activities where kids knew they could share and play together. Adults could engage in conversations that turned strangers into friends, and the sheer joy of community became palpable. Yet, just as connection blossomed, a figure lurked at the edge of the garden. A woman appeared, visibly fraught, fidgeting with the edges of her tattered coat. "Excuse me," she said quietly, hesitant. An electric hush fell over the crowd. "Please, tell us how we can help," Daniel encouraged, stepping towards her, sensing the urgency beneath her words. "I need food. And there's my baby," she faltered, dread shadowing her features. Mia, who had been spinning with laughter moments before, paused mid-flight, her eyes locking onto the woman. "We can share," she declared, pointing to all the food around. The little girl's innocent eagerness sparked a wave of empathy. Let us gather something right now, Lauren urged, seeing the crowd start to respond, stepping forward, arms wide. We got enough for everyone. Slowly, a transformation began. By the end of the day, not only were bonds formed, but a sense of shared purpose emerged. People were no longer defined by their wealth or lack thereof. They were simply members of a community. As conversations danced through the breezy garden, Daniel caught sight of the wealthy woman speaking to the newcomer, her arms now open, her expression softening with a sincerity that surprised everyone, herself included. Days turned into weeks, and the community lunch grew into an organization, providing ongoing support to those in need, fostering trust and understanding among the once disparate groups. Daniel, Lauren, and even Mia became champions of this new vision. They had not only found purpose in each other, but also ignited a flame that burned bright within their community, a place filled with dance, laughter, and heartfelt connections, where no one felt lonely or forgotten again. And as Daniel reflected on their journey, the initial trepidation melted into a deep sense of belonging. Here, within this vibrant tapestry of lives intertwined, they were living proof that a single action could create ripples of change, igniting the light of hope in countless others. As the sun set that day, he knew one truth. The world may still be flawed, but together, they had sewn a patch of love in the quilt of humanity, and it was undeniably beautiful. Now, it's your turn to be part of the story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Let us hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.